Welcome to Just My 2 Cents. I'm your host, Clarinda McGrady, and I have the pleasure of chatting today with world-renowned body language expert and behavior analysis, Jan Hargrave.
That's right, you got me, Clarinda. Does it ever make you nervous to sit with me and me watch your body language?
It does. You sort of freak me out, Jan, sometimes because I'm thinking, does she know what I'm thinking?
Well, you know what, people ask me that and they say, Jan, I don't want to have conversations with you because I think you're reading me. And so to make them feel comfortable, I say, oh, I'm not doing it all the time. But probably subconsciously, if someone was doing a gesture that was really not a good gesture, I would make note of it. I wouldn't think that this was the analysis right then, but I'd watch them for a while and then see if they did it over and over again. Then I'd really make my judgment then.
Jan, you know what, let's back up for a second.
Okay.
You are a body language expert, right?
Right.
What does that mean and why is that important to us?
Okay, well, a body language expert is someone who studies every motion that someone else does, with their shoulders, with their arms, with their eyes, even with your head nodding back and forth, because actions speak louder than words. So oftentimes we give out more messages with our bodies than we do with our mouth. And in fact, the percentage is, just to have this down pat, 55% of our communication is nonverbal. So when someone first sees us, that's the first thing they think, like, do I like that person, or do I trust that person? Do I want to talk with them? That is 55% of our communication. 38% of a person's communication simply is voice inflection or voice tone, because someone can tell you, I like you a lot, but their tone is just off, or when your mom said something in a bad tone, you knew that she meant it. That is 37% of our communication. And then research says that only 7% of a person's actual communication comes from the words that they say. Wow. So while you're talking with someone, of course, you're listening to the words and you're kind of organizing them in your own head, but you're also watching, oh, what are they doing with their hands? What are they doing with their eyes? What are they doing with their shoulders? So you cannot get away from body language. You cannot not communicate. Even if you're sitting there and you're not even moving, you're still sending me a message. Yes. It may be the way your legs are crossed, it may be the way that you're holding your hands. So I think for people in business or even in personal lives, I think that it's something that they need to study. Because if you're unaware of it all your life, you may be missing out on opportunities that would probably be beneficial for you to get.
Absolutely. So how can we use this within our homes, like with our children or our spouses or things like that? How can we use this thing of body language to be able to analyze our family members?
Like when you ask your child, where were you till 9 o'clock last night? Well, of course, because I think though a mother is very, very intuitive. Yes. Fathers can be somewhat intuitive, but I think a mother is a little bit more intuitive. And even over the phone, I bet that you could spot if your children were trying to withhold information from you. And it would probably be in the level of the voice and even in the wording that they chose to tell you that. So just think, as a mom, if you understood signs of deception or signs of honesty, signs of confidence, signs of nervousness, then I think when talking with your children, you could probably gather more information than you really would need sometimes. But just think, if you knew some gestures of confidence, maybe hold your shoulders back, spread your arms a little bit further, then maybe when your daughter would be having trouble, maybe in school, or someone was being ugly to her, you could maybe teach her some nonverbals that could counteract some of the negativeness that they are feeling. So not only is it beneficial in the work industry, I think it's beneficial as a person individually. And then just think, having a discussion with your spouse that you're not on the same wavelength on, and perhaps he's this way. Well, I think if you understood body language, you'd know that this is not a very receptive gesture. When you have arms in front of you, it's very defensive, and it says, I want to think the way I think, and I don't want to think the way you think, so I will not let your thoughts penetrate me. Yes. So we would know that, we probably have to talk about something else, get them to maybe relax and put the arms on the side, because the more open the upper part of the person's body is, the more receptive the person's mind is to taking in the information they're telling you. But I don't want people to think just because we do this, it's negative. There are behaviors that you do that you're doing because you're comfortable. So sometimes you're going to cross your arms, and it's just because you're comfortable and you're listening. The only arm crossing that we allow and teach in college negotiation classes is when hands and fingers are visible. So if you're going to cross in a meeting, at least have even one hand showing. This is called a resting position or a coach's position. Is it right here? Yeah, or even just one if you feel more comfortable. You feel more comfortable just having one show? So when someone's like this, it's like, oh, they're in contemplation. They're listening. They might not fully be in agreement, but at least they're not closed off like this.
You're right. This feels a little bit more empowering and confident, and this does feel more.
Yes, because when we study body language too, one of the things I teach are the 3 C's, and the first is context. When you see a gesture, think what is the environment that gesture appears in. So a lady on a cold night sitting on a bench, sitting this way, she is cold. But a businessman in a meeting sitting like this, he's probably not wanting to listen to what you're saying. So that's why one gesture cannot mean the same thing in every setting. So we talk about the first word that I said was context. Where does that gesture appear in? What's the environment? And the second C is congruence. The third C is context. And by
so context, congruent,
and clusters.
Clusters.
Okay, the first C is context. What is the environment that you see that gesture appear in? The second C is congruence. Does the gesture match what's coming out of the person's mouth? So if I say to you, I love you, but my head goes into a no, then there's some inconsistencies there. And when people see a non-congruence of gesture with words, then you don't come across as believable. And 2, a gesture typically comes out about 1/25th of a second before the word comes out. So that's why you can tell, let's say, and I'll, like this is confidence. When I'm doing this, it's called a steeple. It's a huge gesture of confidence. It's a relaxed, not in prayer, but just the tops are touching here. So many people know that this is a gesture of confidence. But some people sometimes on television say, oh, I'm just going to do this gesture, and they'll think that I'm confident. But the way to catch someone and see if they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes is to see where that gesture appears in their sentence. For example, they may say an entire sentence, and in the end they'll think, oh, I forgot to do the gesture and do it too delayed. So when the gesture is too delayed, it is not a gesture that is genuine to them. And it's not that you would notice that because it's done so fast, but you could you'd start feeling something inside of you that you did not trust that person. And it's because their gestures are incongruent with what they're saying. And then the third C is clusters. So if I'm teaching gestures of deception and I teach you that such and such says that someone's lying to you, I don't want you to just see one gesture of deception and say, oh, I think I've been lied to. You must at least see 2, even 3 would give you a better understanding and analysis. So that's why when we teach body language and we say, if someone does this, he's lying, but that may be one gesture of deception.
Come into the cluster, it has to be a cluster.
At least 2 or 3, like if I'm asking a kid, you know, did you take that candy? And I might see that he did one gesture of deception but didn't do 2 more, then I wouldn't be very sure. But if I ask him again and again, and the way to get the true answer from someone is to re-ask a question a different way, re-ask it a different way, and then eventually they're going to come out and you read the body language from them.
So let's talk about this clusters of deception you were talking about. So what are some gestures of deception? I'm sorry. What are some of these gestures that, you know, people may do that really they're trying to deceive you?
Right. I know. Don't you want to know this? Yeah, they lie to you, and that you want to catch them on that, whether it's a husband or a child or something of that sort. So let me kind of explain it to you this way. Our hands move because our brain operates different sides of our body. So if I'm moving my right hand, that's my left brain that controls that. And my left brain is everything I've ever studied. My math, my science, my history is here. So my timetables are even here. So if I'm multiplying something in my head and have trouble getting those numbers mixed up, I end up starting to move my right hand. It helps me clarify the information, then I can speak it. So when I move my left hand, that is operated from this side of my head. So the right brain controls every motion that I do on the left side of my body. Like if ever you've seen a person with a stroke, and let's say they're not moving the left side of their body, then they had some kind of damage in the right side of their brain. So, but the right brain, this is the fun side, and this is the comical side, this is the side that daydreams.
The creative side.
Creative side. And if you drove somewhere and you can't recall how you got there, you drove their right brain. So when someone is being deceptive with you, more than likely they're going to gesture with their left hand, because when I make up a story, it's coming from right here in my head. So when I lie, this is where I'm creating that little story. So when I gesture, more so with the left hand, and there's 3 predominant gestures that people do when they're being deceptive with the left hand.
Okay, wait a minute. Y'all hear this? There's 3 predominant gestures that people are doing with the left hand when they're lying to you.
When they're lying to you, right. You know, we study the eyes, so eyes play a big part. And I can talk about eyes in a bit to tell you how to, when someone's being deceptive, what you should look for in the eyes. The voice, too, there's only 2 qualities of a voice when someone's being deceptive. When people are being deceptive, the vocal cords get tight. and the voice gets a lot higher. So when they're deceptive, the voice is high. When they're just afraid, the voice is low. So the gestures with the hand are this. Someone's getting ready to tell you something. They know that part of this is not true. They kind of swing their left hand around them. When they get ready to tell you the lie, they take the left index finger, and while they're lying, they gently rub up and down the left side of the nose. So they usually go up twice like this, and then they rub the finger underneath the nose. So think of this. You've probably seen someone who said, you know, you look real good, girl. If you see someone doing that, they're not being honest.
I'll be like, wait a minute, which hand are you using first of all? Let's see.
So let's think why this is a gesture that has to do with deception. So when I bring my hand here, look what's really happening. I'm attempting to cover my mouth. So a liar tries to bring a hand here to distract you from the information coming out of their mouth. So they might try to distract you with the fingernail, with the ring, with the watch. And as a child, because all of our gestures in body language refer to something we did as children. So as a kid, when we said something we should not have said, we went, oh, I can't believe I said that. So we did this. So as an adult, we're still doing this gesture, but we're a little bit more sophisticated. And the reason that the hand touches the nose, this is a physiological effect. Every time you tell a lie, you get a tingling sensation in your nose. So because of it, you end up rubbing. I know that you'll never touch your nose again with your left hand. If ever the left side of your nose itches, you need to come around, just rub it this way. But this also has to do with we label it the Pinocchio effect. Because sometimes if you've had a politician in the past, you know, get in trouble, there was a picture of them on Time magazine and their nose was just extended. So that's where you get this gesture here. But even though you would see someone tell you something, they do this, don't think that they are lying. You know, you've got to get at least two or
You got to get two more to confirmation.
So this would be one. So someone would be telling me something and they would do this. Now, if I'm talking with someone in general, I will notice it because I'm so attuned to watching someone's body language. So first of all, you have to assess, like, what do you really see? And then take the information and see how you want to use it for yourself. So if I saw someone do this and I wanted to make sure that I was not being lied to, I would re-ask that question in another way and see if I got that same behavior. Yeah, the same. So now you can have some fun with this one. Line gesture 2 and 3 also involve the left hand. And line gesture 2 is simply this. It's the left hand towards the left eye.
Do that?
So it's as though they're thinking, do not see very clearly what I'm saying because I'm not being fully truthful with you. And when they're being deceptive and touch the eye, most of their descriptor words have to do with sight. So they might say, yeah, that looks real good on you, and they're just fibbing each time. But your question, I want to answer that before I go any further. Why would someone do this, or why would someone do this or do this? These are displacement gestures. So displacement gestures are gestures that are done that are not necessary gestures. Let's say you're talking with someone and they start doing this. Now you know that my arm doesn't itch, right? That's a displacement gesture. Someone who's always doing this, that's a displacement gesture. Someone pulling pieces of imaginary lint off of their clothing, that's a displacement gesture. So these are self-soothing gestures.
I was going to say, is it because they know that they're just, is it because they're uncomfortable and it's just their way of just doing something to keep their mind off the fact that I'm about to lie?
Yeah, because think what's going on inside the mind of a liar. They're having to tell you their lie, but they're trying to gauge you to see if you are believing what they're telling you. So their mind is very, very busy. So sometimes to soothe themselves, you know, they'll do this, or they'll pull the collar, like this says hotter than the collar. They'll keep doing those gestures. So when someone's on television or someone's in front of a group, the less displacement gestures you can do, the more confident you're going to come across. So even if that neck would be itching, you should not do, you never see someone on television do this or fix the hair much, because they're trained that they know that if you do too many displacement gestures, it takes the viewer away from your message and they're just kind of looking at your clothing. For example, I had worked with this lady, she was a politician, and she would wear a scarf and she was always fooling with her scarf, and I told her, you're going to have to take off the scarf, because the people are, after a while, they're not going to listen to what you're saying. They're just thinking, okay, when's she going to raise that scarf again? When's she going to? So like that. So knowing that, I think any woman, any man in business would know. If you know that much information about body language, just think, when you're in a public situation, you know, first impressions give a lot of indication of you. So when you're in that public setting, you know, you don't want to do those things. So just be consciously aware of it. And a good way to do that is like a lesson that you're doing today. you give your viewers an awareness. They're not going to know everything there is to know about body language, but you have an awareness that when you see someone do the gesture, you say, oh, I think Jan said something about...
That's one of the 3 C's that Jan said. I think that's clustering there.
And then the third gesture of dishonesty is again taking the left hand and it's doing this. You know, they'll talk with you and maybe just tug on the ear, because there's no sense that someone's tugging on their ear when they're talking with you. They're tugging here in hopes that you look here and that you do not look here. And when they're rubbing on the ear, it's as if they're thinking, do not see very clearly what I'm saying because I'm not being fully truthful with you. So those are 3 major, but there's so many, like I just thought of one that I did a while ago. I wasn't lying to you, but I thought about it. What would be shifting anchor position. Like you asked me a question, I would go this way, and then I'd start answering you. You see, that's shifting anchor position. So when you're looking at someone, just keep the words in your mind, comfort and discomfort. So to see how like if I'm looking at someone, I'm just going to see what's their comfort level and what's their discomfort level. And they're more comfortable looking than uncomfortable, whatever that word is, then I know that they're pretty okay. Yeah. So that's the general, when you look at someone in an overview, just see if they're comfortable with what they're doing. And a quick way to tell comfort is to see the spacing between the fingers. Because hands are like windows. When you're comfortable and your house is open, the window's open, well, fingers are the same way. When someone is uncomfortable or cold, everything is closed and tight. So when you're looking at someone's hands and they're talking with you, just every now and then just glance down when they're talking, you know, is there space between the fingers? Are the fingers wide open? Or are they all tight? Or this, if someone did this. So that's comfort versus discomfort. So when you see that with the person, or let's say they're all cuddled this way, that's uncomfortable, stressed, you know, things of that sort.
What about, you know, we always hear, you know, when people when their eyes are shifting, you know, it's like they're thinking of something. Talk to us about the eyes. What does this eye shift mean?
There's about five gestures that I work in the courtroom. We pick juries, train witnesses, the whole bit. So there are 5 eye behaviors that when we see them, we know that something's wrong with the story that's being told to us. So then let's say if I'm looking for my clusters of 3, I would look to see what your eyes were doing when you were talking with me. I'd look to see some gestures maybe you were doing with your left hand, and I'd look to see how your voice would go. So that would be, if I got 3 dishonesty gestures there, I'd be pretty sure that you're lying to me.
So
with the eyes,
So if I'm talking to someone and I'm sort of questioning, are they being really real or authentic? And they're sort of shifting the eyes. That by itself may not mean anything. But if they're shifting their eyes and they're doing this number and they're touching their ear and they're sort of rocking, then they're pretty much...
So that's why I think it's always good that you think of clusters. So with the eyes, normally in a conversation when someone's being honest with you, they're going to look at you 60 to 70% of the time they're talking with you. Because it's easy, we're having a good conversation, we're just comfortable with each other. And for people who are uncomfortable looking at someone's eyes, I say to them, a business gaze is really that I look at you, eye, center, forehead, eye, center, forehead. So if someone says I can't look at someone that long, I tell them to do that. And then when you're more socially attuned to someone, you normally go eye, mouth. Because when you're watching me right now, are you looking at my eyes? You're looking at my mouth? What are you looking at?
I'm looking right now. I'm looking at your eyes, and then I'm just sort of looking more at your mouth.
Because sometimes for clarity, we look at someone's mouth to see, and that's so you don't have to look at someone straight in the eye the whole time. Or in some cultures, because we have cultural body language. Some ladies are not allowed to look at someone in the eye. So this is what I teach them in college. You look at the tops of the person's ear, and they'll never know that you're not looking at them in the eye.
Really? So right now, I'm looking at the tops of your ear. Can you tell?
No, you look like you're looking at me.
Really?
Yeah.
It feels a little weird.
It does look a little weird. Yeah, but you wouldn't probably do that because you look at someone in the eye.
Yeah, but that's actually a good tip because you're right. It takes this sort of the uncomfortableness away. Or if I just don't feel like looking at you, I can just look at your ear.
Or let's say your children may be nervous about having to do a paper in class.
Absolutely.
Maybe you could tell them that, to just look at the person's upper ear and they'll think that they're looking at them in the eye.
That's a good tip.
So it's always good to know. So eye behaviors that are associated with dishonesty are The first one that we say is when someone avoids your eye contact altogether.
Yeah.
So probably when someone is being deceptive with you, they're going to tell their story, they're going to look around, and then the thing how you can almost catch them is when they finish their story, they're going to glare at you. So their eyes will move the whole time they're talking, and then by the very end they're glaring at you because they're trying to figure out, are you believing my story? So eyes that move too much and then glare is one of the eye behaviors. Second one is eyes that remain closed for too long when they're talking with you. So, someone's talking, they're saying like, what is going on with that person? When they keep their eyes closed for too long, it's an eye block. It means they're trying to block something about themselves from you. Excessive eye blinking also can be associated with dishonesty. Not someone who's having trouble with contacts, but someone who's talking in there, because it's, again, look what I'm doing, it's an eye block. They're trying to get their story straight, and so they can't look at you all the way in the eye. And then another behavior, this one's kind of funny, is when you ask someone a question, their eyes will immediately go to the exit of the room before they answer your question. So they're giving you a gesture there that says, I want to get out of here, I don't want to answer the question. So if I'm looking at a jury and I see a juror who's, when they're listening, they'll kind of close their eyes, that means they want to get details. But when someone's talking and they do that behavior, it seemingly can say they're blocking their vision from you because they're trying to do this so that you don't really see them. Because it's like, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. That's what it goes back to. But then when I teach people about the eye behaviors, one thing that I must tell you is that in body language, we have something called baseline behavior. Baseline behavior. So if I'm questioning someone about a crime, I would not first start talking about the crime. I would get a read on them. Maybe I talk about their family and their children. I'd say, oh, when she's comfortable, she crosses her right leg over her left leg. When she's comfortable, she tosses her hair with her left hand. Then I get a read on that person. Then when I'd ask you a serious question, I'd look for deviations from your baseline. So that's why I never want someone who's listening to think, oh, he rubbed his nose and he's lying to me.
Because that could be just their
That might be every day. Maybe every day that person has sinus trouble and they're doing this every day. So it's always good to clarify that part, right?
Figure out what their norm is.
Because I always think of excessive eye blinking. Someone with contacts would probably blink their eyes a lot. So I never want you to think that they have been being deceptive with you. But once you understand that you look for various behaviors together, then you can kind of make an analysis. And honesty cannot leave honesty out. Honesty is done with the right hand. And the most honest gesture really is this. When my right hand with my fingers spread out comes here, it's similar to the pledge when the pledge the fingers are together, but the honesty is here. So with the right hand, like, I love you, I had a good time with you.
I just love you.
And the other part, which is interesting, and this is some research we just really finished last year, which is, I always like to learn more about body language. You would think that I had had enough of this after all these years, but the more we learn about it, then whenever someone asks a question, we know what that behavior stemmed from. So let's say you're looking at someone's body. So we have different zones on the body. This plane, it's a plane. So this is at my navel area. This is called the truth, T-R-U-T-H, plane. My chest area is the passion plane. Underneath the waist area is called the grotesque plane. So if someone's standing up and they're talking with you, to be believed, more than likely, I would suggest that they gesture from the truth plane right here. Around here I'm talking with you. Right here, you look too excited. So people who give the news more than likely will gesture here. The weatherman will gesture here because this news is the same thing every day, so he kind of wants to get you excited. So now just knowing that little part of body language, when you're sitting though, your gestures are going to be a little bit higher. But when you're standing and you're trying to, let's say, present a thesis, present a paper, you're probably going to want to do it if you're standing that your gestures are here, somewhere around here. Then when you get excited, of course, they can come here. And another thing that we can guide listeners to is that eyes love symmetry. So eyes will adhere to something that looks the same on both sides. So when someone is gesturing, if their hand motions are alike on both sides, they're going to be much more pleasant to listen to. Then let's say if I talk with you and one of my hands here and one of my hands is here. You see what's going on here? So it can kind of be distracting. So when you're looking at this, I don't know if it's simultaneous, I don't know how you want to call it, but that they match each other. It kind of goes in your head all at once. And then after a few weeks, you're watching someone do something like, oh yeah, look at there. No wonder I feel uncomfortable with them. Yes. So, but the more that people can play back a video, the more they can hear us say it, then the more the learning can be permanent for them.
Yes.
You know, because now what's going to happen, you know, we look at people, but now after you know body language, you really observe people. Because there's a difference in observation and looking, because I can just look at someone on a street corner, but then if I really observe them, I can see if they are struggling or something's going on with them.